So the next thing that we have to do is actually make it so that when we click create post, it creates a new post. But in order to do that, we need a database. So a lot of people have heard the word database, but they don't exactly know what it means. Okay, so I've created a little representation of what a database could look like in this Excel document. So it consists of tables. So for example, this would be the people table. So we have an ID, a name, and a weight. That's all a person can have in regards to all the data we have here. So you'll notice then we have this cars table with ID, color, and year, and then the person ID. So basically what's going on here, an ID is used as a unique value for something. So we have our name is Colin, our weight is 120. That's not my weight, by the way. Then we have this cars table that has the ID of, this car has the ID of 456, its color is blue, and the year it's made was 2020, and the person that owns it has the ID of 123. So they're separated into their own different tables because a person is not the same as a car. But we use this ID of 123 in the cars table in order to say who owns it. So for example, I could run a query that says grab the person that's ID is 123, and then grab the car that has the ID of 1, 2, and 3. And this way, we would then get back, Colin owns a blue car that was made in 2020. So realistically, you would have way more stuff in a database, like here. And then okay. So in this example, you can see that Colin owns 2 cars, right? Because both cars in this database have the person ID of 123. So then there's another car in here that's yellow and has the person ID of 124. So, well, Tim has the ID of 124 in the people table. So that must mean that car belongs to him. And then if we grab all cars that Jim has, well, it won't return anything because Jim's ID is 125 and there is no person ID of 125 in the cars table. So Jim doesn't own any cars. So this is how a database typically works. However, we're going to be using something called Firestore. And what this does is it combines them all into one. What that would look like is, instead of it looking like it does in this Excel document, imagine as everything is lumped into one list or one object. So we would have name, Colin, weight, 120. And then we would have an array of cars. Remember, an array is a list, similar to what we did with the class. So we'll have an array of objects. Just make that look a little more neat. So, for example, we would have the color of whatever it was here, blue, in year 2020. And then we have another car, so we'll add another comma. Color of green in 2020. Year of, we should be putting these in quotes. So as you can see, the structure of this looks different than this, but luckily this is actually kind of easier to understand, and that's why I've gone that route. So it's pretty easy to tell what's going on just by looking at it if you really analyze it. So person.name is colon, person.weight, 120. And then they have an array or a list of cars, which is an object on its own. So for example, if we did person, if we typed in console.log person.name, it would give us colon. If we did console.log person.weight, it would give us 120. If we did a console.log of person.cars of the index of 0.color, it would give us blue. And the reason it does this is, so we already went over this, but just for a recap, remember 0 is the first number to a computer. So we are saying grab person, okay. Now grab the cars object, okay. So this is an array, so it has multiple sections, almost like files. Which one do you want to grab? So we're saying number 0, which is the first one. So it's saying, okay, we're grabbing you the first slot in the array. Here it is. So now we have access to here. And then we're specifically asking for its color. So if I save this, this function is just being triggered from here, so I can click it from create post. You'll see colon 120 in blue. Colon 120 and blue. And remember, if we change that to 1, person.cars1.year, I'm going to change this to be 2021, even though that doesn't exist yet. That way it differentiates. And I'll get rid of this alert so it doesn't pop up. If I click create post, colon 120 blue 2021. So hopefully that sort of makes sense. An array is just a list, and we have a list of objects. And an object is a variable that contains more than one thing. So for example, you can't just call person colon, because a person contains a lot more than just a name. So an object is a bunch of almost mini variables in one variable. So this is what our actual database would look like, except we're not dealing with people, we're dealing with posts. So instead we would have post, and then we would have like display name is colon, and then we would have content. This is a really good post. And then we would have likes, which would be an array of IDs. So let's say my ID is 123. Let's say somebody has the ID of 456. We would put in 456. And then maybe somebody else with the ID of 789 also liked our post. So now the reason why we're using the IDs and likes instead of just, oh, 3 people have liked your post, is because now we know who liked our post, and since we can count them now, we also know there's 2. So let's say Jim has ID of 456, Tim has ID of 789. Now we know that Jim has liked our post and Tim has liked our post, and we also can count that there's 2 of them. So that's why we do that. Then we would also have comments, which would be an array similar to likes, but we need more than just the ID. We need the display name, because it needs to display their name. So maybe Jim commented. Oh, this is another thing too. We're not actually going to be saving their IDs. We're going to be saving their names. In typical databases, you would be saving our IDs, but this just makes it less complicated. So now we know Jim and Tim have liked our post. Jim has made a comment. The content of the comment is, wow, great post. And then, let's see, display name. Tim commented on our post and he said, yeah, this is awesome. Okay, so this is what our post is going to look like in a database. So we've got the display name. This is my post. I created it. The content. This is a really good post. We know who liked it because it's an array of names. And then we have an array of objects called comments. The object contains display name and content. So now I'm going to be showing you how to do this a bit later, but essentially we are going to be having a loop of this specific template. And instead of colon, it would say something like post dot display name. So I'll be showing you how to do that later. So now that we have a sort of understanding of how our database post will look like, we need to actually begin creating it. So we're going to go back to Google and we're going to type in Firestore. You're going to see this firebase.google.com Cloud Firestore. Then you're going to click this Get Started. So if you haven't already, create a Firebase project in the Firebase console. So click that. Actually, I'm going to right click it and click Open Link in New Tab just in case I need to get back to this one. Then as you can see, I already created one called Summer Camp 2020. However, I'm going to be creating a new one just for this. So I'm going to call this Summer Camp 2020 video tutorial. And I'm going to click continue. Continue. Default account for Firebase. Create project. Okay, so once it's ready to be set up, you're going to be taken to this page right here. And it doesn't exactly tell you what to do. We're going to start off by clicking database and then create database. We're going to start in production mode. Then click done, wait for this to finish. Okay, so now we have our database created. So we're going to click start collection. And then we're going to name this posts. We're going to click auto ID. And basically what's happening right now is we're creating our first post. And we're going to base it off of the model that I have here. Our ID is automatically created though, so we won't need to worry about that. So we're going to go with display name. And it's going to be a string, and it's going to be colon. Then we're going to have content, string. This is a really good post. Then we need an array of likes. So we're going to click array. We're going to have likes. Our string is going to be Jim. We're going to have another one called Tim. And then we're going to add another field down here called comments. And this one is going to be called map. It's also called an object, but Firestore refers to it as a map. So we're going to have display name. We're going to have Jim. And then we're going to have content. And then we're going to have this is an awesome post. And then click save. Oh, we actually made a mistake there. We're going to delete this comments field. We're going to add field called comments. And we're going to make it an array of maps because it's an array of objects. There's multiple of them. So display name, Jim, content. This is an awesome post. And then we'll create another one. Oh, okay, we'll just add that for now. So now we have an array, index 0, content is this is an awesome post, display name is Jim. We want to add an extra one to here. We're going to add another map. And our display name will be Tim. And our content will be, wow, great post, add. It wants us to put something right here. I'm not sure what. Okay, so we need to add an extra section to this array. I made a mistake earlier. So click add field, and then we're going to add another map called, or with a display name of Tim, and a content of wow, great post. I'll click add. Okay. So now you can sort of see what an array looks like in a database. Because remember, I just had it listed here as this. But to a database or a computer, it has a 0 spot. So 0 is Jim and 1 is Tim. So if you grabbed likes 0, it would give us Jim. Likes 1 would give us Tim. So now we seem to have our post set up. So the next thing that we need to do is hook our Firebase up to our website so that we'll be able to actually communicate with it. So I just went back to this first page, the quick start, and it's a good thing I didn't close it because we do need it. So to add the Firebase and Cloud Firestore libraries to your app, you need to copy these in. So I'm just going to click this copy code. And then in our index.html, I'm going to actually, I'll add Firebase at the top. There. So then if we scroll down a little bit, it says you'll need to manually require both Firebase and Cloud Firestore. All that means is we're going to copy that, go to our index.js. Actually, sorry, we're going to create, oh, I created an error here. It doesn't matter because I'm going to delete this anyway, but we're going to create another file called firestore.js. And this is going to handle all of our Firestore stuff. So we just have to put this at the top of it. And then we need to make sure that we include Firestore just like we included index.js. Great. So now that we've copied that, we're going to go down here and we're going to want to copy this stuff. But it says the values for initialize app can be found in your web's Firebase config. So we're going to open that link in new tab. Go to your project settings in the Firebase console. In the your apps card, select the nickname of the app. You need a config object. Select config from the Firebase SDK snippet. Copy the config object snippet. Okay, so we're going to right click and open this. We're going to click our project. We're going to go to project settings and then scroll down to your apps. There are no apps in this project. We're going to click web, app nickname, summer camp, register app. So then we already included the scripts that we need, but we're just going to copy this part right here. So now we've got our Firebase config with all the right information. Now, do not show other people your information if you don't want them to mess with it. Like, you could technically copy all of my information in there right now and get access to this database, which doesn't make a difference to me because I'm doing this for a tutorial. But yeah, if you show other people this, then they'll be able to access your database. So now that we have that done, we're going to try and actually read our data from the database. So we're going to copy this var db right into here. And then we're going to scroll down until we see read data. And we're going to copy that there. Okay, so now we're going to replace users with posts. And now it is going to grab our collection of posts, which if we go back to Firebase, database. So we've got this posts collection. Puts it into this query snapshot. You don't need to know what this means. All you need to know is that this doc variable that gets created right here has all of this information. So there are two different types of information. There is the information here and the ID. So the ID is this, which isn't actually included in here. We don't need it. And then there's data. This is the data. So if we console.log doc.id, and then we create a function to actually put this in, function get posts. We'll copy that into there. Now in our index.js, after in our document.ready, after include HTML, we're going to call get posts. And fingers crossed, hopefully this actually works. So let's go back to our local host and refresh our page. Okay, so we've got some errors, so I'm going to take a look into them. So we don't actually want these top lines up here. We don't need them because we included everything we needed in here. And then we don't need this one either. We're just going to type var app equals Firebase dot initialize app Firebase config. Now that we have that, we can do var db equals Firebase dot Firestore and put an app. Okay, let's see if that fixes it. Okay, so this is really good. So we have missing or insufficient permissions, which is a really easy fix, and it means that we're connected right now. So if I go back to Firebase and I click rules, so this is basically blocking anybody from accessing our database because they don't want us to be hacked, but for right now it's fine because there's no penalties because we're just doing a tutorial. So we're going to change this to true and click publish. And then we'll refresh our page and see if that does anything. Okay, and a console.log this ID. And if we go back to here, back to database, and then we click here. So this is the ID, and that's what it logged. So we are now connected to Firestore. So that is great. So for recap, all we had to do was include the Firebase scripts right here. So this is what gives us the code to access Firebase. So this Firebase.initialize app is code that was included in one of these two scripts. So you don't even know what it needs to do. I don't know what it needs to do. We're not supposed to know what it needs to do because it wasn't our code. It was created by Google, who created Firebase. So all we need to know is that we need to set up this config file that has our information. And we were able to get that information by going to project settings, and going down to our apps. So then they provided us with all of that information. So because we typed in like the project ID and all of that stuff, when we type firebase.firestore and we send in app that has firebase.initialize app firebase config, this connects to Firebase and says, hey, our project is like this API key, this. So then Firebase says, okay, that's all the right information. You're now connected to our servers. So then we create this DB variable that allows us to interact with their collections. So then we reference db.collectionPosts. We get the posts, and then after we've got the posts, we loop through them. We turn it into a variable called doc or document, and then we log its ID. Now I can also log doc.data. And if I refresh the page, you'll see we have all the other information with it. So content, this is a really good post. Display name Colin, we've got our likes and everything else. So now what we're going to do is we're going to loop through all the documents that we have after we create a few more, and we are going to display our template multiple times. So this is a static template, but we're going to make it dynamic. So there's as many templates as there are posts. And we'll go over that in the next section.